Excited to have this show on what's going on with AI and our best look at our own crystal balls for 2024. I believe it's the next industrial revolution. And I want each of you to just take a moment and introduce yourselves. David Amerland, I've known you for many years. You've been a great friend, and Justin's on my team. But David, would you start and just do a brief introduction, and then we'll dig right into the topic.
Right, thank you. Martin, you're right. I've known you forever, and thank you for the invitation. I'm always excited to talk to you. I usually write books on social media and search primarily. Over the last 7 years now, I've branched a little bit into neuroscience in the way it applies to marketing, human behavior, human economic behavior, and how those things actually affect, again, social media marketing, search, and business. So that's what I usually talk about. So this sort of brings us into the AI modulator, which is a modulator of behavior, essentially. It's going to change so many things. I'm quite eager to sort of get into it.
Yeah, Justin, let people know a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Dr. Justion Rose. I am currently the Director of Industry Training at Beaufort County Community College, where I oversee a variety of technical education, including AI and drone operation, things like that. I also am the owner of Landing Place Solutions, LLC, where I work with small businesses to learn technical skills such as using AI to streamline their business and productivity and idea generation, things such as that, so that way they can scale and grow.
And then this is the Martin Brossman Show. So I'm Martin Brossman, the passion for supporting individuals and businesses in having profound results that are both ethical and profitable. So this is really a lifelong passion of how do we win the game in a way that honors our customers and ourselves as best as possible. And AI to me is something that I've always loved technology ever since I was told by my parents that the first words I said was not mother and father, but wanna or, and that was the sound of the Wallensack tape machine they'd turn on to record me. So it'd go war, and I just said wanna or, and they were concerned because they were hoping it'd be mama or dada. So I was drawn to technology back to that level, and I think it's still strong. Let's just open with this world of AI. To me is a little bit like being on an island with random earthquakes changing its terrain almost daily. And fundamentals are still moving slow, but the upper area is just shifting so quickly. And it seems to be such an attractive thing for clickbait, for the formerly known as news, now known as propaganda systems that we have, that I really want us to delve into a lot of the different topics and also give people some education and some tools to be safer in this changing world.
Absolutely. I think the challenges which you just laid out are there, and they're looming large. They're only going to get larger as the year progresses.
One of the biggest things that I'm concerned about just right out of the gate is that we have both major elections and major wars going on, and the ability to generate deep fakes or any type of fakes is becoming easier and easier and easier. So the people who don't want to learn about AI, I believe, and my stepson, Emery Carr, who's a senior data scientist, believes, are going to be some of the most vulnerable to it, because we're getting better at noticing that extra thumb in the picture, which eventually will go away, or finger. But the people who aren't, I've shown images and they go, oh my gosh, that's terrible. I go, notice this, this, and this, and you'll see it's still a fake.
Okay. Let's backtrack a little bit, just a tiny bit, and essentially explain that AI is a tool like any other tool, and any technological tool we use essentially layers an interface between us and the external world and amplifies some of the things which we need to do. So it's essentially human behavior driven by human needs and human sort of drives that actually push everything forward. We started 2022 with a massive investment from companies in the Metaverse and Metaverse technology. Meta changed its name because of that and invested a massive amount of money and know-how and hired a lot of engineers. And all this sort of went by the wayside the moment that AI sort of blew up in the horizon because it became accessible. And really what happened, I mean, we've had AI technology for quite a long time now. This is a process of using large language models in very specific environments. Google has had part of that activating search within certain contexts for some time now, but it didn't capture the popular imagination, which is again human behavior. It's that capturing of attention and imagination which then makes it sexy within inverted commas and viable. And companies now are investing a lot of money into this because it allows uptake at a popular level. And one of the classic examples of this now, I think we're just past 17th of January, the unboxing of Galaxy S24 happened. It's the first AI smartphone. And what does that mean? Well, essentially, I had a preview of some of the tools, and they're amazing. Essentially, you have on the phone itself some AI capabilities, and then you have access to and this leads into the deep fakes you're talking about. You have direct access to Samsung's AI in the cloud, and basically you can have a picture of people and you can manually move them around in the picture and change the picture format, and it allows you to do that seamlessly. It is amazing quality, and at the moment it sort of marks that the picture has been modulated and changed. But eventually we can get rid of that. We can have technology which will get rid of those watermarks, and we can present a picture which is fake that looks very realistic. All this exciting stuff is changing a lot of the things which we take for granted. But exciting stuff changing the things we take for granted has happened since the printing press. The moment we had mass production of pamphlets and leaflets and books, the first thing that went by the wayside was the truth. The Telegraph in 1879. I think there was a San Francisco newspaper, and I can't remember the exact name of the newspaper, that actually ran an article saying that a lie circles the globe faster than the truth can get out of bed because of the telegraph, because things went from town to town before anything can be printed, before anything can be verified. So this isn't new. It's fundamental human behavior. What is frightening, as you said, is the current context. We have two current wars going on, one in the Middle East, one in a proximity of Europe. We have an election, a very important election, which is about to take place in the States. We have several other elections that are about to take place this year in the European Union. And all these things bring into a certain amount of tension, human intentions, human drives, human behavior, which then use whatever tools they have in their disposal to drive their own agendas. We've always done that. Yep. The question now is, okay, how do we deal with it? At the current level of technology, we're still quite capable of capturing false pictures or deep fakes because the technology isn't that precise. It has yet to erase the digital fingerprints it leaves when it changes something. But we're not far away from a moment when this won't be the case, and this won't be the issue. And this now brings us back to something which again is fundamental, which is where do you get your sources of information? It's no coincidence that one of the primary things which we have when it comes to trust is family and friends. Why? Because they're least likely to lie to us. And again, if you ask yourself, why will it happen? Is it because they're better human beings? Well, fundamentally, no, they're not. They're the same as everybody else, but they have perhaps the least to gain by lying to us because they're our family and friends. Unless it's a Game of Thrones situation.
Right.
So now when it comes to applying this on a greater scale, well, it's up to each individual to a certain extent to develop the sources of information they have that they can trust. And it also brings into clear relief something which started with semantic search, which is the validity of the source when it comes to news or articles or even blog posts. Who wrote it? How long they've been doing it? What's their profile like? So essentially, we used to talk about author rank within semantic search because it appeared within the Google Plus context, which was the social media network of Google at the time, that they were actually using some signals from there to verify information. And then that became entity-based because they increase their entity database. Entities are least likely to present false information because they have the most to lose if they found out that it's false. We're kind of living in a funny world right now where perhaps entities themselves do gain a lot by lying, but at the same time, we have that approach when it comes to the validity of anything. So if you check who said something, where did it come from, what's the provenance, who originated it, what's their agenda, and you have that kind of understanding, then you begin to develop as a consumer of information in a digital plane and digital world. You begin to develop your own personal strategies which allow you to navigate it. Now, this is survival 101 in the real world. We do it automatically. In the digital world, not so much, because we think, oh, it's there, we see it. If we're a little bit naive about it, if we're not very well versed in how things can be manipulated or how people can have agendas or whatever, then we can ourselves be affected, and this is a fact. But it is also a fact that as we mature as individuals, both in the real world and the digital domain, our behavior changes. We become more sophisticated, we become more adept, we become less trusting perhaps, and we also develop those strategies which allow us to filter what we see in order to detect the sort of truer picture of the world underneath.
You wrote that book on semantic search and helped me with my first course. I think that was back in 2013. I reached out. I said, I'm giving a talk on this, which was a game changer because what happened is there were all these SEO people that claimed they knew someone at Google and they started disappearing. Because what they made it is, the way I described it back then is, it was easier to game the system than when semantic search occurred and it got out of the hands of, you can't just talk to someone at Google even if you know it. It's running on its own. It had a very positive effect in leveling the playing field. And I believe there's a certain leveling of that, especially for small businesses right now, and accessibility. That's why the book was produced, for brick and mortar businesses, because that's the window.
And David, I completely agree with you on that. One of the things that we're seeing, and to pick up on your example, is to the family example, is typically that worked primarily because everyone was in tune with, one, what the facts were. Two, they were grounded in, I say reality, in the fact of they were aware of what was going on. And you typically had the stereotypical uncle who would say, well, actually, and he'd correct you. What we're really getting into now that's dangerous is less and less as this advances, you're having less and less people who are really grounded. One thing I've found fascinating so far is it's not just the deep fake videos or pictures, it's this text to speech. And we've seen this on ads on YouTube where they've edited a video of a celebrity and they've put in the same script. And that's one of the red flags I see, is when you have celebrities of different personalities who are not known for conforming to anything, and then all of a sudden they're all reading from the same exact word for word script. That's a huge red flag there. Especially when you have two that are on opposing sides of an argument and don't agree on the color of the sky, but yet they're reading from the same exact script. But what happens is they've gotten we as a culture have gotten so big on brand recognition that unfortunately many people are falling for these because it's fill in the celebrity or fill in the political figure. They trust that person perhaps enough to click on something, but the realization is that person does an endorsement. We saw this here recently with Tom Hanks, in which they were using his likeness to endorse certain products, and he actually had to come out publicly and say, please do not, pursue these things. And so that's tricky too, because not only is the consumer being trapped in some of these schemes or false information, but now you have to worry about the likeness of people. And you could get into the whole Hollywood strikes about using AI in movies without permission or contracts, but for the common average user, it's more dangerous, I'd say, than it's ever been. Now, on the flip side of that, it is really amazing what you can do with it, that you can create these things. Because if you think about it from a creative standpoint, for example, I work in education and higher education primarily, there's a big debate right now in higher education with, one's around plagiarism. Can AI plagiarize? Well, then you get into hallucinations, and that's where I see a lot of the debate right now is just plagiarism. And what's fascinating to me is we go straight to something like plagiarism or students cheating, and we completely bypass the ability to augment knowledge, research, and things like this, and we automatically jump on the negative of everything. Now, I will say there's concern is warranted, but then you go back to, and I use the collegiate example purposefully because what you're taught in college is to research, to validate the accuracy of sources. And it seems like as a culture, we've kind of moved away from that, validating your research, checking your sources, making sure before you click on something and enter your social security number that you know where it's coming from and so on. And so, for example, you're talking about educating people, here at the community college I'm at Beaufort, we're trying to create an institute for AI, not only for small business and industry, but for the common user of here's how to use these tools, say ChatGPT or Claude, but also here's how to educate yourself on spotting different schemes or different false information as you're using these or as you're reading. And so it's really about educating society as a whole. And I really think that's probably one thing that in the hype we've lost.
Yeah, I think it's spot on. And I think your example in education is the most challenging one, not least because you are active in an environment which is supposedly evidence-based and fact-driven. At the same time, you need to generate original content, original perspectives, which is filtered through a certain opinion, perhaps, which then will have to be based on reality. And within that framework, anything which is introduced, which is not based on reality or based on facts, but is taken as such, creates huge problems. And the problem is trust, right? It's how do you trust your own senses? How do you trust the information you get? Then how do you trust your own perception, which is formed by what you have consumed? If we take that now from that particular sort of industry which you work, and we apply it in sort of society as a whole, the world as a whole, because it's pretty soon going to be a global problem. Well, then you realize that it's massive.
Mm-hmm.
How do we solve it? As you said, it's education. It's yes and no. I mean, it depends what you mean by education. Certainly, within the environment where you work in, being educated is a massive plus. It allows you to access higher critical thinking skills. It allows you to develop through the contact with people who are functioning at a high level, specific filters perhaps, or specific strategies which work. If we take it into the wild, where people don't have access to that kind of environment, then they also need to develop similar skills, but perhaps at a lower level, or perhaps at a more narrow, in a more narrow context. And that's part of the maturation process. It's no different to the real world. You take some person from the countryside where perhaps they lived within a sort of secluded, isolated farming community. Put them into a big city, they're gonna get ripped off within 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not because they're stupid, but because they're naive to the ways of the big city. Leave them there for a year, and they're perhaps indistinguishable from a native New Yorker
Mm-hmm.
or a native Los Angelino or whatever. And that's part of the way we acquire the natural skills we need in order to navigate our environment. Now, the question when it comes to the internet is that the environment is not the same for everybody. We can all get online the same way. We get online through our phones and our laptops and our tablets, and that's no problem. But the context of our existence in the digital world is very different. And it can be very different in a very disparate and difficult to understand way sometimes in people perhaps living side by side, where one household is amazingly adept at navigating the digital domain, and the household immediately next to them is so naive that they're ready to consume whatever they see on Facebook and take it as gospel, for instance. So the only way that we can deal with this realistically, is the same way that we dealt with it in the past. One is community-driven approaches, where we create the culture necessary. And you mentioned culture before, and we need to specify that from a scientific point of view. Culture is essentially human behavior. So human behavior, which is acceptable by all of us, is codified in what we call culture because it is acceptable by all of us. So for instance, we don't kill, we don't steal, we don't lie, we don't sleep with each other's wives, right? We all agree to that. It's codified into a culture which allows us to develop a kind of trust, which then leads to interpersonal relational exchanges and relationships, which make everything else work. So encoding that into a culture, it's human behavior. And within a community setting, however small or however big that is, then that becomes possible if we all begin to gradually accept those things and realize them or shift towards them, even if the scale is not the same. So I would say that, the level of sophistication and culture in your environment is going to be a lot higher out of necessity because you deal with a lot more pressing facts, perhaps, or greater level of uncertainty or ambiguity than, say, a person who only gets online just to pick up some news and try to understand what's happening in the world. They both, an academic and that person would need some kind of filtering approach in order to understand what they see, but the level of sophistication perhaps would be different. So the level of education necessary would also be different.
I want to bring up something else about education because I'm also honored to be on the alumni council for my university, St. Andrews University. And they're working to keep an essence of the core that made it a great university, but also adapt to the new times. And I think some of the good things about AI is we will be forced to get back to teaching people how to think. I think the assumption that they know how to think is a dangerous one. And then also the importance of, in our educational systems, making sure we have our students exposed to things they might not agree with and be able to either get them to debate on something they don't agree with. Because we have such a natural tendency in social media to get into our own comfortable echo chamber. And I can see it happen myself. I always keep people around that are very different views than mine, politically and everything else, so that I can watch for when I'm getting sucked into the echo chamber. And I think that's going to be an important role of the universities and education to make it useful and make these people effective in society. Is what does it mean to really think? What does it mean to take a position you don't agree with and argue it? So you have to look from that alternate perspective. What does it mean to actually get news versus opinion? I believe many of us have lost track of, did I actually get accurate description of what occurred from a human being with a commitment to deliver that, or did I get a commentary that matches something I value or believe in, so I just sucked it in? So those are some of the things I think are critical for the educational system to adapt and adjust to, because they're not going to get the toothpaste back into the tube, which is AI. You can't, this idea of blocking or stopping it, you need, it's like we have a whole new ocean with new waves, and the only option is to learn to surf. You're not going to control this ocean. So those are several things I think are critical that the people in education, and Justin's working as an advisor, they've embraced him right at his school so that they adapt and adjust. And that's something I hope to do more of in my own university. Are we getting our students to learn to think, to learn to know when they haven't gotten accurate data, to learn to argue positions different from theirs? And I think that's the fundamental defense against misinformation.
Absolutely. And I think, okay, sorry, Justin, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, you're good. And I agree with that wholeheartedly, because one of the things that I'm seeing with students is you almost have a split. You have students, and David, you nailed this perfectly when you said that it really depends on usage at the home. When it comes to facts and truth, when you want to talk about what is true, you're always going to have essentially three factors to any situation. You're going to have my perception, your perception, and what the facts are. And we may not really even understand what the true facts are because we're only going to understand our perception. And so when you take two settings, a home that has had access to internet and the parents are both or one skilled with technology, and then you take, maybe there's limited access or it's not the best internet, and maybe the parents are first generation, they're learning themselves, you're going to have two different settings there first. One thing I see with students is, one, if you're relying solely on what they're learning in school, we have a technical issue because we have an issue with the skills they're graduating with. Are they capable of just using the basic tools, not AI related, but the basic tools effectively? And so I see students who not only can effectively use the tools, but then I almost have to worry about them getting too reliant on AI. To They're using it so effectively because they're really integrating it in, that they become so reliant that they forget how to think, or they forget how to really do the work. Those who are still struggling to learn the basic skills with technology, that AI overwhelms them completely. And so it's interesting to try to find that common ground, because I do see the educational concern with students just putting down AI written data and not really understanding it, which you got to get more back to a skills based assessment to
Yep.
where it's in the class, demonstrate. But it's interesting too, because just like, again, the telegraph, the locomotive, the assembly line, every industrial revolution you have changes the status quo. And so AI is going to be the same way. So we have to teach AI because it's not going anywhere. We have to teach the ethical use of it. But then you have the amount of fear, and fear is what I really see going into 2024, because the hype was great. Everybody was comfortable and upbeat. That hype's starting to die away now, and you're really starting to see the ethical implications, the labor implications, with companies starting to invest so much in it and downsizing. And so you've got this disconnect where you have a pipeline of students that may or may not be prepared for AI related jobs or augmented jobs. And then you've got a workforce where people are either overwhelmed by it, they're terrified of it, or they're against it. And you're starting to see where, again, it's not AI that's going to take your job. It's the person who understands how to effectively use AI that's going to replace you if you do not learn these skills. And so what I see is a jam up in this pipeline if we don't do something about it.
Absolutely. I mean, you drew a very nice picture of a problem that's global right now. Anything which we don't understand, we fear. Anything which we fear, we react adversely against, and we are blind to any kind of information that tells us otherwise. Let's call this the Luddite effect.
Mm-hmm.
It's found in human behavior again, right? And the answer to that is always education. But education is difficult to take place at that sort of broad level, especially when you have such a disparate group of individuals, people of different ages, different backgrounds, different socioeconomic capabilities, and so on. Usually, the answer to this, and hopefully, as we move into the 21st century, deeper into it, we'll be able to apply it better, is to actually use technology to apply a fundamentally human level of connection, or human layer of connection. We all have different intents and different agendas and different needs when it comes to why we're in the digital domain. We're all going to use different tools for different purposes. But all those things which we do are fundamentally driven by the same common things which we need. We all need some kind of recognition. We all need to have some kind of identity. We all need to have some kind of home base as a shelter. They will need to have some kind of means of making a living. These are things which are fundamental. And then when we have those, we need to also find some kind of group to identify with in order to feel secure in how we are, which then allows us to predict the future, at least in our mind, which then allows us to plan our lives. Now, these are fundamental things which have never changed. We can possibly go back, 50,000 years ago, and around a campfire in the middle of a cave, we'd have the same discussion using perhaps different language. But those things are human, and the moment we acknowledge them, we essentially mitigate some of the fear which the unknown presents, because It doesn't matter how educated we are, how adept we are with technology. We all live with certain levels of uncertainty. We all have some kind of fear about the unknown. We all are trying desperately to predict the next moment, because if we can do that, then we can safely navigate our lives into it. And when we realize that's how we live, then we all live the same way. We may have different contexts, but the fundamental aspects of who we are essentially the same. Those form the connective tissue, which then allows us to have that broader discussion. How do we do it safely? How do we use it more productively? Why are we afraid of it? Some things will change, absolutely, because technology does that. It changes the culture, it changes human behavior because it changes the culture, it changes capabilities, it changes socioeconomic statuses, and it causes massive disruption, and then it causes massive opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment we accept that, we say, okay, it does that historically, so this is what's going to happen now. Am I going to be part of the people who will experience opportunity or disruption? Usually it's a bit of both. So you need some help to navigate the disruption so you can get to the opportunity. And these are the things which we actually need to use technology creatively to create as pieces of information, pieces of connection, and modifiers of human behavior, which then allows us to deal better with what's coming.
Absolutely. And one thing we just started to bring up is jobs. I'd love to pivot and address what we see in the job market, and also our associate Dana Gower. He and I were point on offering the professional training. Now Justin's part of it too, and he's in the middle of helping people find jobs. That's one of his jobs. Now he's using ChatGPT daily, but he doesn't. He just gets it for the core material. Then he personalizes it and humanizes it, and he's working on the paid system. His statement is it's doubled his productivity in helping people get jobs. Now he's not creating cover letters or something like that he doesn't read over first, but he might go, wow, that's a good way to put it. This is the topic, and then dials it in with the human condition touch, which right now is what we even recommend for small businesses. Whatever you do, don't just grab it, throw it out there. We all see that I wrote 50 books and made 50 grand on AI. We should run from that, not run to it, because that's going to have a death pretty quick in saturation. So let's talk a little bit about what we see of the impact on jobs, because I think what's happening is a lot of companies are so eager to get rid of people. They might be downsizing maybe too fast. And then they're going to back up and need to hire some back. I mean, Google's cutting. Google's cutting so many features. I'm suspicious that they might be overcutting. We are seeing massive layoffs in so many major companies today that I think that part of that is driven by they're betting on an AI. They haven't guaranteed they understand it will provide what they need.
Let's start with the large companies laying off people. Companies like Google, and I think Meta is also doing something like that. IBM recently. This is more a reflection on the strategies we use as large companies. A lot of these companies overhire in terms of engineers because they remove that pool of talent from their competitors, and that automatically gives them a competitive advantage. We get to rough times sometimes, and then it's easy to release those people back in the market. They flood the market thinking, okay, we have the competitive advantage for however long we had it, and now what we're really looking for is deeper margins in order to go through whatever rough patch we see ahead. Terrible strategy in terms of a human effect. It totally disregards the value to the individual, which so many companies pay lip service to. And then companies like Google also do other things, like they recently laid off their quite on point, right, their AI ethics team. They're all fired because obviously they have no longer any need of ethics in AI because they're going to go down the unethical path, right? And that's implication. The thing, we see sort of things like that. I mean, Meta's fired people who were working on the Metaverse because it's shifting its focus on AI right now, because the Metaverse, which it is sort of invested so much in, is still a pipe dream in many ways, in terms of uptake, in terms of the technology which we need in order for it to become ubiquitous. Whereas AI is here, and AI is on everybody's lips. So is this going to disrupt jobs at a more fundamental level? Absolutely. I mean, there are a lot of things which we do as humans which are dehumanizing. And things like making coffee and giving it to somebody. You have a person doing that sometimes, and you think, a barista. But at the same time, it's a dehumanizing job when you think that it's the same coffee in this exactly the same format given to somebody who wants that. And we can program a machine to do that. We can perhaps do away with most of baristas' jobs and keep perhaps those few who will do something amazingly creative by way of presentation, which a machine can't do. The same thing goes for perhaps, you can't do away with chefs, but you can do away with people who do cooking. So some of those jobs will disappear, absolutely. But as those jobs disappear, other jobs will appear, some of which we can't even predict. Like, I mean, 10 years ago, there were no YouTubers, or 15 years ago. You said, I'm a YouTuber. What the heck is that?
Right.
And now we have Mr. Beast, right? I mean, last year he made what, 83 million dollars? I mean, that's more than some large corporations make. And he's just one small individual with, a few guys to help him bring out videos which are essentially entertainment. So when you think about that, the use of AI, and I think, Martin, you said correctly in the beginning of this video, you said that it's the great leveler, like search was in the beginning. It will allow a lot of individuals to do amazing things with relatively little cost by way of the barrier threshold that they would encounter, and they will be able to do amazing creative things and make a lot of money from. And I'm thinking perhaps, somebody who has the imagination and is adept enough in their prompts can actually use AI to create a cinematic film of sufficient quality that you would be able to show it and make money from. Not quite there yet in terms of, but we're beginning to. So this is brilliant. You don't need a Hollywood studio, don't need directors, you don't need a lot of writers, and what you need is somebody who's talented enough and sufficiently digitally educated to create the prompts necessary in order to produce that high quality video. Is that a skill and a talent? Absolutely, because not everybody can do it. Not everybody will have the ability to translate their imagination into words which are sufficiently accurate by way of a prompt in order to produce something like that. Will that do away with some perhaps mid-level films, which are, I watch a lot of Netflix sometimes just to unwind, and I'm surprised, sometimes shocked by the amount of expertise and money that goes into a film that's technically brilliant, that has no heart. And I watch it from beginning to end, and I think, okay, I've wasted now 60 minutes of my life or 70 minutes of my life. Because it does nothing. It doesn't catch your imagination, it doesn't capture your heart, it doesn't make you think that, oh, that was worth watching. Mindless entertainment, but if I'd known from the beginning that it was going to be like that, I wouldn't have watched it. And so much money is spent on that, and an AI could probably do it better. So some things will get automatically better. Always when we have that kind of transition, there's a pain point. People will lose their jobs. And when the moment people lose their jobs, there's a lot of heartache involved. The economy changes, their own situations change. This is not easy. This is what causes the disruption, stroke, unsettlement within cultures and societies, which then make everybody say, oh, AI is going to get your job, because fear is contagious. So these are things which we are better at dealing with if we deal with a community setting where we can actually discuss them, as opposed to an individual setting where I will go on Twitter and rail against AI because I lost my job and finish my post by saying you are next. So when you read it, you'll think, OMG, it's coming for me, and then you're going to feed off that. So yeah, this is the situation where in terms of jobs, but at the same time, it gives opportunities. If you're a small business person and you use AI tools, suddenly you have the skill and capability and productivity of a larger team, and it's just a person, you and your wife maybe. So this is a good thing to have.
And there's a lot of great points in there because, and I don't know where to start. Well, one, there's data out there that states that, again, the engineers scenario where you may have 10 qualified engineers who are all top grade, all 10 get hired, they retain 2, and so you have 8 back out there. So what happens to those 8 engineers who now have all this experience go and just knock on every door of the competitor? Or does 1 or 2 of them take the skills they've learned and create their own venture, potentially even making more than they were with the previous employer? And you bring up Mr. Beast. Again, he's making more than many large companies with a group of, I think it's 5 or 6 guys, if I'm not mistaken. And so how much would he be paid to do that for an entertainment company versus what he's making using his own and developing his own skills? And so what I see a lot, especially with small business, and I see it in the administrative world too, is they're burning out, they're overwhelmed, they could use these tools so much, but they're either so scared of them, they don't think they have the time, or they think they have to read this user manual that's going to take so much effort that they're going to start missing out on opportunities. When Martin and I teach, many times it'll tell you how to use it. You just have to
Yeah.
know how to ask. And it's funny you mentioned imagination, because I was just explaining this to someone yesterday. They were asking about prompt engineering and my experience with it. And being a millennial, I told them, think about the Matrix. Your mind is what really cages you in. So just imagine you're Neo with this thing and let your imagination fly. Martin and I teach one skill in our AI classes where it's just brainstorming. You can
Yeah.
use Copilot with the microphone, talk to it aimlessly as far as you're aware of, and it's going to take that. All you have to remember is at the end to tell it what you want to do with that information. And so I think if every small business understood that one concept, if I could talk to this thing, I could vent my frustrations to something like Copilot and then ask it to solve it in some specific way, that may lift them to the next level that day, that week, that month. But it's going to go ahead and start benefiting them. But again, you got to start at the community, like you said. And that's where, you want education, you want large organizations to really be benefited by this. But I think that's where small business is so powerful, because you can get up on the soapbox in the town square and talk about this, and you're going to be listened to as much as the newspapers read. Many times they're going to pass by. But when you see downtown start transforming, and it may be the result of various things, but if you had a downtown that was transformed, and you find out a lot of it was contributed to them using AI powered tools effectively all of a sudden, and then you have the community saying, wow, there may be something to this, because I'm seeing economic growth. I'm seeing that shop owner's life transform, and them and their family, because of additional opportunities from the growth of their business. Then you start to pick up momentum, and you start to really see buy-in to it. And then from there, if you have an educational institution that may not think this is a large priority, but all of a sudden you see economic development as a result from it, you have institutes, you have programs all of a sudden that are taking and building on it. And so your point is true. And I think small business is a very big part of instigating that. But again, and it may be somewhat contributed to mindless entertainment. When it's so easy to scroll on social media, Martin has told many people this, and I love it, is download the app. Make sure you download the right app, but download the app. And if you're going to scroll for an hour on Instagram, take 20 minutes and practice. Ask it
Just right.
questions.
Chat
And
GPT.
next thing you know, you're going to find, hopefully, that next thing it's 50 minutes of that hour that you're working, and then you have a idea for a small business or a side hustle, or you've learned a new skill that can help you at work, or maybe even cracked something that you and your team just couldn't wrap your head around. And really, the concept is, I like to say cyborg, just because we don't have these tools implemented into our body, it's not Star Trek. We're essentially at the cyborg level, because we have not only the vast information of the internet in our hand or on our wrist, or if you have a set of Google glasses on your face, but now we have a tool that can actually analyze and create from this. And again, when you look at jobs, the ability for these tools to augment is amazing. In trades, for example, with some of our programs, our instructors have access to augmented tools to where if we can't work on a specific type of equipment, we can access tools that allow the students set up like a VR or a video game to where they can actually get real data that's taken from real situations, but they can still get that training. And so surprisingly, these aren't used even now mainstream. They're still cutting edge to many people. And how long have these tools been around? Imagine the case of the family who has access to good internet speeds. They have access to great technology, but they use it for mindless scrolling or mindless entertainment. But then you have the other family that is starting to, you know, grow what they have. They're putting skills, they're learning skills, and they're increasing their financial output. And they are able to get, say, their son or daughter into a school that uses augmented tools. Even though they may be in a rural area, they have access to the same experience that the other family could have if, they pursued it. And I'm not trying to point to one situation as being better or worse. I'm just saying it's a good model, and it's what we're seeing in education. A lot of it still has to do with access to and funding, but at the same time, even more so, it's demand. If you have demand, you will somehow get access to things, but at the same time, you have to be able, if no one's demanding it, then it's an easy way for it to go to the wayside. So the community has to demand it, but something has to inspire them. But again, it comes back to, for me, with these tools, DALL-E, ChatGPT, any of it is imagination. You have to be open-minded to it for anything to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as you explained this, one thing which becomes increasingly clear is the paradox of building communities that have truly supportive values in a world where the technology that we have at our disposal is more and more inclined to isolate us
Mm-hmm.
from building those communities at a human level. And that's something which plays a fundamental role in our survival as a species. Our superpower always has been because we are fundamentally weak. Okay, as individuals, we are stupid, we are weak, and we lack the endurance necessary to last any kind of course. Put us together in a group and we change. And you mentioned earlier on, and it's an important point to think, that we're almost like cyborgs in this world. And that feeds on the extended mind theory, where essentially we don't think with our brain, we think with the world. And the
Mm-hmm.
technology we have at our fingertips has allowed us over the last 15, 20 years to access more and more and more and more of that world than before at a lower cost and at a smaller effort. So that potentially makes us more powerful, makes us smarter, makes us more capable, provided we can use that skill and then we can network at a human level. Because individually, if we become really smart, any of us, right, just us, that's nothing. It doesn't do anything. It might serve us for a small while on a personal whatever journey we have and our personal needs, but it does nothing for the world, it does nothing for the community, it does nothing for the environment around us. It does nothing for us as a species. But what actually does help us is that as people, we're social beings, we have friends, we have family, and we usually share knowledge, ideas, suggestions, even behaviors in terms of how we use something. And if we can do that at an increasing level, then we will be more and more successful at dealing with the challenge of technology. Technology is dehumanizing only if we let it. Only
Yep.
if we let it isolate us because it overwhelms us. Only if we let it cut us off because we just find it so hard to deal with what's happening that additional human contact is too taxing for us. When we sort of learn that or feel that we need to have those other people around us, then what we learn becomes empowering. What they learn becomes eye-opening for us as well. So it's squaring that circle. And right now, because we're in a transitionary phase in our history, Justin, what you said is increasingly difficult. It's very difficult to build true communities. It's very difficult to agree on the values they should have. It's very difficult to agree on the behavior they should exhibit. It's not impossible, but gosh, it's a challenge, right? And that's the thing we need to solve.
Yeah, there was a book when I was growing up called Future Shock David, I don't know if you ever remember that, but the idea
Absolutely.
was as technology grows, the human need for connection will grow equally.
Yeah, that's our superpower, absolutely. And we see that increasingly. Companies that are very good at navigating the human capital that they have within their siloed walls are really, really good at dealing with challenges in the marketplace, at being innovative, at dealing with downturns in the economy, at making sure they take advantage of upsurges in the economy. They're absolutely brilliant. Companies that just hire smart people and put them in a cubicle and think they're going to be super productive and they're going to
Mm-hmm.
get X amount of value out of them over the course of however long they hire them for, they don't do so well. This is a microcosm of society at large. If we isolate people, if we cut them off from their surroundings, well, we wither. We know that. We don't do well. Connect us with other people, and suddenly some of our fears are mitigated or evaporate completely. Some of our strengths are augmented. Our capabilities grow faster. We learn better. We behave better generally.
Mm-hmm.
So the challenge we face right now is that there's so much
Mm.
endemic fear in the world because of the transition we're going through that convincing us all to work at a community level, at a human level,
Mm-hmm.
takes some doing.
And on top of that, another side of that, you could say cube or however you want to label it, is purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Hmm.
as important as connection is purpose. And one thing that really drives me, it doesn't matter if you're a workaholic or you're someone who has had an easy ride, your life needs purpose. We all need purpose. And so what happens when I hear about, well, AI is going to transform the world and we're going to move into a new economy to where AI and machines are going to produce the goods and they're going to do it at such a level that we won't need to work. We will just have a universal system, a universal pay system, and we'll be able to pursue science and expand our awareness and things like that. And though that sounds amazing, I think what you're going to find then is you're going to find a lot of health issues. You're going to find a lot of mental issues that develop. And to me, coming from trades and working with individuals who have spent their entire life perfecting a craft, working in that craft, and many times they really enjoy it outside of it, they turn it into a second business, is as soon as they retire and they become dormant, they may have been healthy for 40 years, 50, 60 years. They develop disease. They start to develop, say, dementia or things like that. And I don't have the scientific research to back it. This is just firsthand knowledge. I've seen it so much in my life. And then you have those who may even be a sibling with the same genetic structures, almost to a twin, and they either upskill to learn something new that they continue with the business after they retire, they learn a new skill, or but they stay physically and mentally sharp.
Yeah,
They may outlive a sibling or a spouse for 20 or 30 years. And
yeah,
they may have health well into an older age. And so, my fear too is if we overextend this, one, I think we're a long ways away from that ever happening because you're going to need that connection with the consumer. Many consumers are still not going to want everything delivered by a robot. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to have that human connection and that human discernment. But if we do start moving in that direction faster than anticipated, I've not yet heard discussions on what is going to be the humanitarian crisis in the health sector when we don't have to work anymore.
okay. I mean, spot on, right? Perfect comment. Um, Part of what you said was covered, as it happens, in my last book, which was intentional.
Yeah, which is great.
And
I have a copy.
thank thank
Really
you.
good.
Uh,
Recommend it.
and basically, you mentioned purpose, and purpose sounds like such a vague, sort of substanceless thing to discuss. And yet, the moment we take it away from a person, they lose meaning in their life. And the moment we lose meaning in the actions we do, then we first have no direction in life. But secondly, what happens is we experience at a biomechanical level an elevated level of anxiety. That anxiety is expressed through hormones which are produced by our microbiome and affect our brain and other organs in the body. And essentially, we live in a toxic environment, which means that if we lose purpose, then we lose meaning, and if we lose meaning, very soon we become ill and we die.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason that happens is because everything that in a toxic environment produced by elevated stress levels, elevated stress hormones in our body, everything begins to function at that suboptimal level. Our heart and our lungs and our digestive system, and then everything becomes really difficult. Even our brain is affected because that's also an organ in the body. It loses its ability to see the future. However, we experience that seeing. And the moment we can't see the future, what happens again? The uncertainty we experience in the world goes up, our fear levels go up, the toxicity we experience in ourselves is also elevated in response to that. And we sicken. We have mental disorders, as you quite rightly say, but we have also physical disorders. We simply break down. We're not designed to live in such a toxic internal environment. So purpose is essentially a mechanism through which we justify the existence that we have, and we justify in turn everything that's associated with that existence. So if for example, let's say you're trying to get your little brother through school,
Mm-hmm.
and you're holding down your job, another job, and you're helping him, and doing several other things. So you're performing at a really high level of of performance every single day, and you can't drop the ball because somebody else is depending on you. And you're managing to do it. You don't experience burnout. You don't experience such fatigue that you can't perform. You manage to keep whatever anxiety you have in control, so your brain continues to function at a high level. And you say, well, how do you do it? And you say, well, it's for my brother. And then you take somebody else who may be working at the same level as you are, and their only purpose in life is to make money because that's what they need. They feel they need. But that's an extrinsic reward, which begins to lose its value as money accumulates. And then they experience burnout, they experience depression, they experience perhaps heart attack, which is a physical condition. And the difference between the two people isn't the amount of work that they're doing and the lifestyle they have, provided the lifestyle is not excessive in terms of doing harm to yourself, but their ability to justify what they feel in order to regulate their internal environment when it comes under that externally produced stress that is a result of the work you do. So what you said is absolutely brilliant. We need a sense of purpose. Culturally and historically, this has been provided by, again, in a community setting, by either perhaps national interests or even religion, which is, a really strong element in terms of bringing us together and making us feel that there's a meaning to things. We tend to lose these things these days. I think I have no explanation why that happens, which has any credibility. It's only my own opinion, but I think it's part of the fragmentation of the individual sometimes, and the ability to cocoon ourselves in our own homes and feel connected when we're not. And that can have all sorts of deleterious consequences on us. Coming out of our shell, becoming more social, which is what we need, is a challenge. The community setting we've been mentioning throughout this video is so important. And having the ability to draw people into that is absolutely crucial to making sure these things don't happen. And every individual that is brought into a community, doesn't matter what level they're at or how skilled or unskilled they are, they're still an individual that has experiences, memories, perception, and they're capable within the right context of enriching that community. So it's never really having communities of equals, but it's always a case of having community of people. And I think that's what really elevates us.
The other thing that I've had the pleasure of being a success coach is helping people re-find new purpose. That's what you have to know. If it's not there, let's start by getting outside your comfort zone. Let's start by doing something to help somebody else. And that's when people start to re-find it. It's like, it's okay you hit this wall and you feel like your life has no purpose. It's not okay to stay there because that's going to cause problems. You got to just go do something. and I'll often say try something on for 60 or 90 days. Now, don't do anything dangerous or radical that that has huge consequences, but some people don't know or have permission. You can just make up a new game and start living out of it. And that's a critical piece. And sometimes just picking something for 90 days is the way out. And I do believe a lot of this has to do with the fragmentation of the family. It has to do with the overwhelm of data coming at us. The world's changing too fast for our biological systems, and also the social media getting us tunnel vision. I kind of call it a socialized narcissism that I see, where it's all about me, 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 me. And then, of course, the person's saying, oh my gosh, I'm in depression, going to therapy. Well, of course you are. Your life really is meaningless because it's all about you. So I want to add, along with this AI, it's important that we are reevaluating our why. What gets us up in the morning, and what motivates us? And if it's not there, it's time to either do it yourself or get someone to help you reinvent that. And I think that's a very important piece of this.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
What I'd like to talk about next are who are the big players this year to keep an eye on, and what's going on with them, and just a discussion, because we've got Google with the multimodal AI, obviously they're stepping up. Meta, which is Facebook, with their AI, and Llama 2, I think is the current version, which they've intentionally made somewhat open source, trying to be a contribution. Apple stepped up and said, look, Siri's going to be not as dumb as it's been. Microsoft clearly is heavily in the game. And then we have ChatGPT working with Microsoft. And then we have cool little products like the Samsung and the Rabbit R1. And I have to tell you, I decided to pre-order one. We'll do a video on that, just because a $200 AI handheld device, I thought that's worth at least a discussion or some pieces. So these are some of the players. What's interesting that I haven't heard anything from is the Amazon devices. Maybe they're doing something, but they badly need. They're 10 years old. I have a smart home, and my wife has some mobility issues, and it's a critical point. I go, Alexa needs to get smarter. So.
Let's look at the trends and let's look at the reasons behind them. First of all, let's start by saying that the age of digital assistants, and that's Google Assistant on Android, Alexa, which you mentioned, even Siri, and certainly Microsoft's Cortana, which hasn't been heard of for some time now. They failed. Okay, so the reason they failed is because they're so expensive. They're expensive to build and they're expensive to maintain from a computing power point of view. And certainly they haven't performed to the extent that the companies expected them to in terms of helping them monetize that assistant. I mean, Google had this idea that perhaps they would get the opportunity to use Google Assistant through our queries to learn what we want and make purchases, and perhaps even present us with specific ads or recommendations. And what do we all use Google Assistant for? Well, the weather outside, to turn the lights on, turn the lights off, set the alarm, that kind of thing. Perhaps play music on Google Speaker. And this has led to the deprecation of Assistant. Certainly Google Assistant is underperforming these days and not investing anymore in it. Alexa hasn't done anything new for some time. Siri has been underinvested in. AI is coming in and started off with ChatGPT, which made it popular. So suddenly they're building massive data centers. Data centers are expensive to build. They're massively expensive to maintain. I think I saw a piece of data recently that for a single query on ChatGPT, you need something like 9 liters of water to maintain the coolness of the servers. And this is just for a single query, right? Okay, obviously they recycle some of that water, but nevertheless, it's a massive cost to the environment, massive impact, which means that it's not really sustainable. Sure, they're all investing in this because nobody wants to be left behind. And these are large companies with deep pockets, so the massive investments they're making from their perspective are justifiable and certainly within their means. But will we see constant AI evolution like we've seen now? Well, for the foreseeable future, yes, but beyond 2024, beyond 2025, beyond 2026, it's going to start tapering off because at some point that ROI will need to come into its own. We've seen an example of what's happening with Galaxy AI and also the Rabbit, which you brought up. And that's it's a marriage of hardware and software. So you have some of the AI processes going on the device and part of it going on in the cloud. And if we have that kind of merger, then it becomes a lot more manageable in terms of costs, because evidently or obviously the consumer is handling some of that cost, right? So if my own device is consuming power, for instance, to do some of the processing, then the data center doesn't need to be bothered about that until
Right.
it gets to the next level. Now, and this is my opinion. I'm seeing how things are progressing. When I researched and wrote Google Semantic Search, there were at the time a sizable number of papers talking about web agents. And a web agent essentially was a piece of software that was customizable to you and customized to you, that would basically carry out your search queries on the web while you're asleep. So you can say, for instance, whatever your personalized web agent is, listen, I want you to find, I don't know, a holiday in the Alps in the middle of February for 2026 for this budget and for a group of 6. And that would sort of go off and do all the research, gather all the data while you go to bed. So by the time you wake up the next day or the day after, whenever, however long it takes it basically does that for you. We didn't have the technology to pull that off. The research papers were all there. But now we're actually getting to the technology to actually pull that off. So we will have these digital avatars of us, or digital servants, if you like, which will work for us. And they will live increasingly in our devices and be capable of performing tasks for us across the web. And they'll be able to do that at a marginal cost of what current AIs are using. So that's the direction we're heading towards. So the future is personalized assistants, which will essentially carry out this work for us, and that'll be a boon for education again, because it'll be a powerful educational tool if you're a student, where your personalized studying strategy is different to somebody else's, and the tool which you're using is customized to what you're doing, so it helps you do it better and faster. You mentioned, Justin, this is a key point, that sometimes people don't want to read the manual. They're afraid of the learning curve of using something. But suppose something was ready to use out of a box with a voice command, and that thing got better and better and better as it got to know you. So suddenly the learning curve is both more enjoyable and a lot less steep, and it's a lot more accessible. And that leads to more people using it. And
Right.
in my mind, that's also a big step towards moving away from the digital inequality, which we've been talking about. We have 2 households, totally different digital skills, equal access potentially to information and technology, but they're making such different use of it because of their skill set, that one is falling behind and the other one is forging ahead. So the gap is between them is getting bigger and bigger, even though they may be side by side. But if you have a personalized assistant which will try and do what you tell it to do, and in terms of capability it'll be powerful, then that kind of smooths out the inequality to some extent. It doesn't. It will never make it go away, but it will actually help in terms of how I have a tool as powerful as yours, and if I'm smart enough and see you use it, then I'll learn to use it in the same way. So these are the things which are coming in our immediate future. We're going to see all this happening in the next 3 to 4 years. So by the time we get to 2024 right now, it's an amazing number to think about. By the time we get to 2030, it's only 6 years away. The landscape will be so profoundly different that to think that we used to talk about Google search and 10 links to try and find information and be like, what is this? So primitive.
I
Yeah.
agree with you completely. And the way I would pitch it is, 2022 was it's here. It
Right.
it came out, it was accessible. 2023 was look how large it is, how large these networks are, how large these data centers. Everything's about size, the magnitude, to where I even heard discussions about, are we going to clean up our atmosphere so that way we can store servers in space to solve the coolant problem? And I'm thinking that's a lot of cleanup since the space program. but it's smart. And so 2024, like David said, it's about scale. Is all right, we've shown you and we've really impressed you with how massive the technology is and how massive the scale is. Now we're going to fit it in your hand. And so again, the phone, the rabbit, depending on which angle you view the Thanksgiving Day OpenAI thing, event, a lot of that from the different reports you hear largely came from ethical concerns from certain members of OpenAI's board on, Sam Altman going all across the world trying to build this, beginning to end user system to where everything they do is on a phone. To being distracted from the ethics of and the development of ChatGPT. And of course you've got Microsoft there. Microsoft, and like with Cortana, tried the phone at one point. They kind of gave up on it. I don't think they shelved it. I think a lot of what Sam Altman's doing with trying to have an end user device with Open AI and ChatGPT, I believe Microsoft's right there with them as a partner. But I think it's going to be an arms race now in 2024 to who can have the best small product to fit it in your hand. There's everything from the Rabbit, which is its own unique device, to cell phones, smartphones, to even some of those that they're clipping on your lapel, and you can hold your hand out and it is using light to track your movements. And so everybody's trying to come up with their own unique flavor. And again, I think that's I don't want to say that's the distraction of 2024, but that's they've hit us with this new concept each year. And I don't think that's going away. Facebook or Meta, Mark Zuckerberg just came out the other day with, we're moving to AGI. And David, I agree with you. I don't think they're giving up on the metaverse. I think they're just prioritizing their work right now. And so I think that's the end goal, is the phones and the mobile devices are what we're using now. And so that's how they can get it into our hands quicker and more effectively. But I think the end result is going to be something similar to the metaverse eventually, to where you won't need this device. You'll just need some way to access. And I think 2024 is going to be, in my opinion, all about access and how to access these systems. That's going to be the big marketing campaign, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. And David, like you said, not just the energy thing, talking to my stepson, Emery, who really understands at a granular level, he goes, we're going to run out of data to be able to even search. They're going to really, we need another paradigm shift in the deep algorithms and the effectiveness. We're going to start hitting some walls that we just don't have enough data to mine. And of course, as we know, ChatGPT is kind of hard to scale because every time you ask, there's no caching. It's going out and having to do it. So we do need another jump in advancement of algorithms and ideas on AI. And to close with he studies it at a granular level and says most of it's like early science. They try an algorithm like an alchemist and throw it against the wall. And if it produces something good, they then come up with kind of a reason why it happened so they can get funding, but they're not quite sure. And then they try some more of that. This sounds like early scientists. We tested something, it didn't kill us, and it helped keep the cold away. So that's the one way he's described to me, the level at the point. There's still a lot of room for profound breakthroughs in the real fundamentals of AI. And I think without it, we might see another kind of AI winter or plateau, which is what you're describing, Dave. So this was so exciting. We could go on for hours. So I think what we ought to do is let's regroup, make some notes on what our next discussion is. And I want to mention, thanks, Dana, for the notes. We barely had time to scratch the surface on that. And let's come back in a month or two because it's going to be changed. I'd love for us to have a continuous flow of this throughout the year because it's the whole game. I mean, some major paradigm shift could happen next week. And I didn't even mention Tesla's robots. I mean, there's so much to cover. And of course, Dave, you and I know the metaverse didn't go away. It's still a need. It's just all the oxygen's been taken up by AI. So we'll wrap it up by just saying, David, is there a book in the works, and where should people follow you to find it out? And then we'll, of course, mention ours too.
At the moment, I'm doing a lot of research. There is something coming up, but nothing immediate just yet. But you can find me at davidamerland.com. You can find me on Instagram and LinkedIn and X, and increasingly on Blue Sky. So if you just Google my name, I'll come up.
Yeah, absolutely. I recommend following him and on LinkedIn as well. Great stuff. Well, with us, of course, we have our new book here, and excited. We already getting booked quite a bit for everything from our professional talk for associations and groups to helping small businesses, nonprofits. We even chatted with some CPAs, small CPA firms wanting to optimize their system and wanting some consulting services on how to not get hoodwinked into some of these, we have AI, just give us your precious dollar stuff. Mm-hmm. So we're excited this year to work on that. So David, it was wonderful having you here. I want to thank you so much. And let's make sure maybe in a month or two we do a next version. What do you think?
Absolutely. And thank you both. It's been amazing talking to you as always. And Justin, it's been eye-opening as always. And I think you work in such an exciting field. It's brilliant.
It's been a great pleasure. I've greatly enjoyed the conversation. I think we, in a ways, think a lot alike on this concept. And I'm looking forward to the next time.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, guys. Take care and look forward to hearing people's comments. And, of course, for the YouTube, remember to subscribe to the Martin Brossman Show. And all be safe. Take care.
Take care.